Comfort. The word itself sounds warm, safe, and reassuring. It paints the picture of soft chairs, steady routines, and the absence of trouble. But beneath this calm surface lies a hidden danger that most people never see until it's too late. Comfort is not peace. Its paralysis disguised as satisfaction. It lulls the human spirit into a false sense of security, convincing us that we've arrived when, in truth, we've stopped moving. The desire for comfort is the invisible hand that keeps millions from fulfilling their potential, because it whispers, "You're fine where you are," even when everything within you knows you were made for more. The mind naturally seeks ease, avoiding discomfort as though it were pain itself. But here's the paradox, see? Every real advancement in your life has come from moments of discomfort. Think back to the times you grew the most. It wasn't when life was easy. It was when you were challenged, stretched, or forced to adapt. The human soul thrives not in ease, but in effort. Comfort may feel pleasant, but it weakens ambition, dulls creativity, and numbs the desire to reach higher ground. The man who seeks too much comfort soon forgets what it feels like to be alive. His days blur together, each one safe but empty, predictable but meaningless. Comfort convinces people that stillness is stability, but that is a dangerous lie. There is no true stability in comfort because life itself is movement. The universe expands, the seasons change, and even the smallest cell in your body is in constant motion. The moment you stop moving, you stop growing, and when you stop growing, you begin to decay. The illusion of comfort creates the illusion of permanence, but nothing in this world remains unchanged. To cling to comfort is to cling to a mirage that will vanish the moment life demands evolution. You'll notice that the most fulfilled people you meet are not those who live in perfect ease, but those who continue to push beyond what is familiar. They embrace challenges not because they love pain, but because they understand growth lives on the other side of it. They've learned that the discomfort of progress is far sweeter than the comfort of mediocrity. Comfort asks for nothing and gives nothing. It seduces the dreamer into becoming a spectator, watching life go by while convincing himself that he's doing fine. And in the end, he confuses the absence of struggle for the presence of peace. Most people build their lives around the pursuit of comfort, steady jobs, predictable routines, familiar faces. There's nothing wrong with stability, but when it becomes a substitute for progress, it turns poisonous. Comfort zones shrink over time. What feels safe today becomes a prison tomorrow. People wake up one morning and realize they've built walls so high around their lives that they no longer see the horizon. They've traded possibility for predictability, adventure for assurance, and what once felt like safety now feels like suffocation. Comfort also has a way of disguising itself as wisdom. People justify their inaction with words like being practical, being realistic, or playing it safe. Yet history has shown that nothing great was ever accomplished by those who stayed comfortable. Progress belongs to the restless, those who feel a holy dissatisfaction with mediocrity. Comfort teaches us to settle, to believe that good enough is the same as fulfilled. But deep inside, the human spirit knows better. There's an ache in every soul that refuses to be quieted by comfort because it was never designed for stillness. It was designed to grow. Every comfort zone begins as a place of rest and ends as a place of rust. It's not wrong to rest, but when rest becomes residence, you start to lose the edge that once made you sharp. The muscles of ambition atrophy when unused. The mind grows dull when it is never challenged. Comfort numbs the sense of wonder, replacing curiosity with complacency. It creates a life where everything looks right from the outside, but feels hollow from within. You begin to live not because you're inspired, but because you're accustomed. And soon, days turn into years, and you realize that nothing truly changed. Not because it couldn't, but because you wouldn't let it. In truth, comfort is not the reward of a meaningful life. It is the enemy of it. The people who build empires, create art, change lives, and discover new worlds are not those who chased comfort, but those who confronted discomfort head-on. They understood that ease is an illusion, a sweet trap that steals time and promise. Comfort never leads to greatness, it only leads to quiet regret. The most tragic thing about comfort is that it doesn't hurt enough to make you move, but it numbs you just enough to make you stay. And that is how dreams die, not with failure, but with quiet satisfaction in a life that was good enough. Every forward step humanity has ever taken was paid for with risk. The bridges we cross, the machines we use, the cities we build, and even the freedoms we enjoy, all were once nothing more than daring ideas that someone was brave enough to attempt. Risk is not a burden, it is the currency of advancement. Every discovery that has reshaped the world was made by someone willing to step beyond what was known, to face uncertainty, and to embrace the possibility of failure. Those who fear risk fear progress itself, because the two cannot be separated. Progress demands a price, and that price is always the willingness to venture into the unknown. The instinct for safety is natural, But progress is not born in safety. It is born in uncertainty, in the willingness to leave the shore in search of new lands. Every time someone chooses to risk comfort for growth, they ignite the spark of transformation. It might be a scientist pursuing an unproven theory, an entrepreneur starting from nothing, or an individual deciding to change the course of their life. In each case, risk stands as the invisible threshold between mediocrity and mastery. Without it, even the brightest ideas remain untested dreams, and potential becomes a memory of what could have been. Risk is not recklessness. It is not the blind pursuit of danger, but the conscious decision to embrace uncertainty for a greater purpose. It is a calculation of courage, the understanding that while you may lose something tangible, you stand to gain something far more valuable: experience, knowledge, strength, and self-respect. Risk refines character because it forces you to trust in your own abilities when the outcome is not guaranteed. It strips away illusion and reveals who you truly are. It teaches that progress is never about avoiding failure, but about walking through it and learning from every scar along the way. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who remain ordinary is not talent, but tolerance for risk. The average person hesitates at the edge of uncertainty, waiting for the perfect time that never comes. The extraordinary person jumps, not because they are fearless, but because they understand that fear is part of the process. Risk takers are not gamblers, they are believers. They believe in the possibility of a better outcome, in their capacity to grow, and in the idea that the unknown is not an enemy, but a doorway to discovery. Every step forward in life, no matter how small, begins with that leap of faith. To live without risk is to live without progress. It is to repeat yesterday forever, to walk the same roads and expect new destinations. Many people crave change, yet they resist the very ingredient that makes it possible. They want success without sacrifice, growth without challenge, and comfort without cost. But the laws of life do not work that way. The universe rewards those who move, not those who wait. It honors courage, even when that courage fails, because in the act of daring, one evolves. Every failure that comes from risk carries with it a lesson that success can never teach. The irony of avoiding risk is that it creates a different kind of danger, the danger of stagnation. The person who avoids risk thinks they are preserving security, but in reality, they are only delaying loss. The world moves forward with or without them, and by standing still, they fall behind. Opportunities decay, momentum fades, and the fear that once kept them safe eventually becomes the chain that binds them. The true cost of avoiding risk is invisible at first. It's the slow erosion of passion, the fading of purpose, the quiet surrender of potential. What they believed was safety was only decay wearing a gentle face. Every great achievement carries a story of someone who risked everything for an unseen reward. The pioneers who explored unknown lands, the inventors who challenged existing science, the artists who dared to express the inexpressible, all of them faced rejection, failure, and doubt. Yet their willingness to endure uncertainty changed the course of history. Progress is never guaranteed, but it is always possible for those who accept the price. Risk does not promise success, it promises growth. And through that growth, success eventually becomes inevitable, because each failure shapes the wisdom needed to reach higher ground. Risk transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. It breaks the cycle of predictability and replaces it with the adventure of becoming. To take a risk is to make a statement to the universe that you are not content to exist, but determined to evolve. It means choosing to build when others hesitate, to speak when others remain silent, and to try when others only imagine. Progress belongs to those who are willing to risk comfort, certainty, and reputation for the sake of something greater. The price of progress is never easy to pay, but it is always worth paying because without risk, the story of human greatness would never have been written. Fear is the silent assassin of human potential. It creeps into the mind, whispering doubts, magnifying dangers, and creating storms that never truly exist. While failure teaches, fear paralyzes. It convinces a person not to try at all, ensuring defeat long before any battle is fought. Most people never fail because they never truly begin. They live inside the cage of their own anxieties, mistaking caution for wisdom. Fear disguises itself as logic, telling us to wait for a better moment, a safer path, or clearer certainty. But that better moment rarely arrives, and life quietly passes by while fear keeps its victims trapped in endless hesitation. The tragedy of fear is that it often feels justified. It presents itself with convincing evidence, past mistakes, stories of others who failed, statistics of risk, and memories of pain. It uses reason to protect us from potential harm, but in doing so, it shields us from opportunity as well. Fear builds invisible walls around our desires, whispering that we're not ready, not talented enough, not deserving enough. And while we wait to become ready, time slips away. The people who seem fearless are not those without fear. They are simply those who refuse to be controlled by it. They act in spite of trembling hands and racing hearts, because they know that fear is not a command, only a suggestion. Fear kills dreams before failure ever has a chance to touch them. Failure, as painful as it may be, still carries the seeds of growth. Every failure is a teacher, revealing something new about ourselves, our craft, or our path. But fear kills quietly. It stops us from even enrolling in the lesson. It's a thief that robs potential in silence, leaving behind what could have been. The saddest words in any language are, "I could have." Those words are not born from failure. They are born from fear. The fear of rejection, the fear of embarrassment, the fear of loss, the fear of not being enough. These fears weigh more heavily on the heart than any actual defeat could. The mind is powerful, but fear distorts its power. It projects future disasters that are rarely real. It paints the worst-case scenario so vividly that we forget the best case even exists. We start to worship safety, mistaking it for security, when in truth, safety only ensures stagnation. Fear locks the doors of creativity and bolts the windows of imagination. It convinces artists not to create, leaders not to speak, and dreamers not to dream. Fear doesn't need to destroy you directly. It only needs to stop you from moving. And once you stop, time does the rest. Many people think the pain of failure is unbearable, but those who have failed and risen again know it's survivable. The pain of failure fades, the pain of regret endures. Failure hurts for a season, fear haunts for a lifetime. Those who take action, even imperfectly, at least discover what they are capable of. Those who let fear dictate their steps never discover anything at all. Fear makes people live half-lives, never too high, never too low, never too happy, never too hurt. It keeps them in the gray middle, where nothing truly grows. And what's tragic is that many call this being realistic, not realizing that realism, when built on fear, is just another form of surrender. Fear doesn't just stop individuals, it halts progress itself. Entire societies have stagnated because fear ruled the hearts of their people. The fear of change, the fear of difference, the fear of challenge, it's the same enemy in different disguises. Fear kills innovation because it values preservation over progress. It kills truth because it values comfort over honesty. It kills relationships because it values control over vulnerability. In every aspect of life, fear creates smallness, small dreams, small actions, small lives. And what begins as a protective instinct eventually becomes a lifelong prison. The irony of fear is that most of what we dread never actually happens. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. The disasters we picture, the rejections we expect, the losses we foresee, most of them are nothing but shadows. Yet these shadows dictate how we live, what we attempt, and how far we go. We build our lives around avoiding pain rather than pursuing purpose. And in doing so, we trade the joy of living for the comfort of existing. Fear doesn't ask for much. It only asks that you obey it once. But that single act of obedience often becomes a habit, and that habit shapes destiny. If fear were truly as powerful as it appears, humanity would have never advanced beyond the cave. Every invention, every act of courage, every leap of faith required someone to face fear and move forward anyway. Fear may never disappear entirely, but its control can. The difference between those who succeed and those who do not isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act in spite of it. Fear kills more dreams than failure ever will, because failure only ends a moment, but fear ends a lifetime of possibilities before they even begin. There is a quiet tragedy that unfolds in the lives of many. It's not the tragedy of failure, but of potential never realized. Playing small is the art of shrinking oneself to fit into spaces never meant to contain a full life. It begins subtly, a hesitation here, a compromise there, a dream postponed for the sake of comfort or approval. Soon it becomes a pattern, a habit of underestimating one's worth, one's voice, one's purpose. On the surface, such a life looks peaceful, even wise. It avoids confrontation, minimizes risk, and keeps everything predictable. But beneath that stillness, something sacred begins to die, the hunger for greatness that every soul is born with. Playing small often feels safe, but it is the kind of safety that costs too much. You tell yourself you're being cautious, realistic, or humble, when in truth you are afraid. Afraid to fail, afraid to be judged, afraid to outgrow those who once defined you. Fear disguises itself as modesty, and soon, the mind starts creating reasons to stay invisible. This is enough, you say. At least I'm comfortable. But comfort without purpose is emptiness wearing a mask of peace. You end up surviving, not living. The worst part is that the world often praises this kind of mediocrity, rewarding compliance more than courage, politeness more than power. And so, people mistake approval for fulfillment. The cost of playing small isn't always visible at first. It doesn't come as a sudden loss or a public failure. It comes as quiet erosion, the slow fading of joy, the steady dulling of passion. You stop dreaming vividly. You stop taking bold steps. You stop expecting more from yourself. The life that once seemed full of promise begins to feel like repetition. Day after day, you move through the same motions, convincing yourself this is just how life works. But deep within, there's a silent cry for something greater, a longing for the version of yourself that still believes in possibilities. Playing small numbs that voice until it becomes almost unrecognizable. Many people play small not because they lack ambition, but because they were taught that standing out is dangerous. From childhood, society trains us to conform, to blend in, to follow rules, to stay within acceptable limits. You're told not to speak too loudly, not to aim too high, not to want too much. Over time, this conditioning creates invisible ceilings. You learn to lower your expectations so you won't be disappointed. You learn to shrink your dreams so they won't intimidate others. And one day, you wake up realizing you've built a life designed not for greatness, but for approval. Playing small becomes a form of protection, but it also becomes a cage. When you play small, you betray the gift you were born with. Every person is given something extraordinary, an ability, a perspective, a spark that no one else can replicate. But the world never sees it if you refuse to step forward. Playing small keeps those gifts hidden, unused, and unshared. It's not humility, it's neglect. True humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself rightly and using your strengths to serve a greater purpose. When you play small, you rob others of the light you were meant to give. The world becomes a little dimmer, not because evil triumphed, but because good stayed silent. The silent cost of playing small is also the loss of authenticity. When you constantly suppress your true voice to fit into someone else's expectations, you begin to lose touch with who you are. You become a reflection of others' comfort, rather than an expression of your own truth. You measure your worth by how little you disturb the peace, by how easily you're accepted. But peace without purpose is just passivity. You start to realize that you can no longer hear your own thoughts over the noise of conformity. And in trying to be everything to everyone, you forget what it feels like to simply be yourself. Another cost of playing small is missed opportunity. Opportunities do not announce themselves twice. Life often presents them disguised as risk, challenge, or change. When you're playing small, you hesitate, you analyze too long, you wait too carefully, and in doing so, the moment passes, the world moves on, the doors close, and you convince yourself it wasn't meant for you. But deep down, you know it was. The regret of inaction is heavier than the weight of failure, because it carries the haunting thought of what might have been. You never truly lose what you attempt. You lose what you avoid. Playing small ensures that loss before the game even begins. There's also a spiritual cost to playing small, the slow death of faith in your own potential. You begin to believe that greatness is reserved for others, that destiny skips your name. But the truth is that playing small blinds you to the divine power within you. The same energy that moves mountains and parts oceans exists in the human spirit, waiting to be awakened through courage. Playing small disconnects you from that source. You start living as if your purpose were limited, as if your story were insignificant. But no life is meant to be ordinary. It only becomes so when fear replaces faith. The emotional toll of playing small is subtle but devastating. It manifests as restlessness, dissatisfaction, and the quiet feeling that something is missing. You try to fill that emptiness with distraction, work, entertainment, validation, but nothing satisfies for long. That emptiness is not a flaw, it is your unfulfilled potential calling you. It's the ache of knowing you're capable of more but settling for less. Over time, this emotional fatigue turns into bitterness. You begin to envy those who dared to do what you didn't. You resent their courage, not because you dislike them, but because you see in them the reflection of who you could have been. Playing small may protect you from disappointment, but it also protects you from joy. It spares you from failure, but it also spares you from discovery. The irony is that by trying to avoid loss, you lose the very essence of living. To play small is to live a half-life, safe, quiet, unremarkable. The silent cost is not measured in money, fame, or recognition, but in the invisible currency of the soul. The dreams never pursued, the songs never sung, the courage never tested. The world does not punish you for playing small, it simply forgets you. And perhaps that is the deepest cost of all. Inaction is the quiet thief of destiny. It doesn't destroy dreams with violence or sudden collapse. It dissolves them slowly, one unmade decision at a time. Most people believe failure is the ultimate loss, but failure, at least, means you tried. Inaction is far more dangerous because it gives the illusion of safety while quietly stealing years. Every great idea, every ambition, every vision that dies without expression perishes not from lack of possibility, but from lack of motion. The world is filled with people who could have been extraordinary, yet their potential remains buried beneath the weight of hesitation. Inaction often begins with good intentions. People tell themselves they are waiting for the right moment, the perfect timing, or the best conditions. They call it patience or wisdom, but in truth it is fear in disguise. The perfect moment never comes because perfection doesn't exist outside of action. Action creates clarity, waiting breeds confusion. The person who waits endlessly for certainty will never begin, while the one who acts despite uncertainty discovers strength they never knew they had. Life rewards movement, not contemplation. The longer one hesitates, the heavier the weight of inaction becomes until it paralyzes entirely. Inaction is seductive because it feels harmless. It doesn't confront you, it comforts you. It tells you that you're being cautious, that you're thinking things through, that there's still time. And for a while, that lie feels true. But days turn into months, months into years, and you realize that time wasn't waiting. It was moving. You can always regain money, rebuild relationships, or recover from mistakes, but you can never reclaim lost time. Inaction feeds on that irreversibility. It convinces you to trade the present for an imaginary future that never arrives. The cost of that trade is invisible at first, but it grows heavier with every day of delay. The real pain of inaction often reveals itself not in failure, but in reflection. Years later, when you look back and realize what could have been done, who you could have become, and what you could have achieved, regret begins to whisper. Regret is not the voice of failure, it's the voice of unused potential. Failure gives closure because it teaches. Inaction offers none because it leaves everything unanswered. The mind replays every moment you could have acted differently, and the heart bears the weight of possibilities that will never be known. That is the cruelest part of inaction. It denies even the dignity of experience. Inaction kills momentum, and without momentum, even the smallest goal feels impossible. Every time you delay, you train your mind to accept delay as normal. You begin to normalize postponing progress. "I'll start tomorrow" becomes a mantra of mediocrity. Over time, that habit of postponement becomes identity. You stop seeing yourself as capable of action. You start believing that your dreams are too far away, too unrealistic, too demanding. But the truth is, it's not that the dream is too big, it's that the muscle of action has grown weak. Like any muscle, it atrophies when neglected, and only movement can restore its strength. Inaction feeds doubt. The more you delay, the more your mind invents reasons to delay further. Action silences doubt by proving possibilities through results, but inaction amplifies it. It makes you question your worth, your purpose, and your capacity. What began as hesitation becomes self-doubt, and self-doubt becomes paralysis. You start believing that others are simply luckier or more talented, never realizing that what separates them from you is not brilliance, but the courage to act. Doubt thrives in stillness. The longer you remain motionless, the louder it grows, until even small steps feel impossible. Inaction also dulls intuition. The mind learns by doing, the spirit strengthens through experience. When you act, you engage with reality. You receive feedback, correction, insight. But when you stay still, your understanding of life becomes theoretical. You live through thoughts, not through truth. The person who never acts begins to lose the sense of what they are capable of. They live more in imagination than in existence. They build castles in their mind, but never lay a single stone in the world. And slowly, imagination turns from a tool of creation into a source of torment, because it shows what could be but never will be. The cost of inaction extends beyond the self. It affects everything and everyone connected to you. Every unfulfilled dream deprives others the light you were meant to bring. A teacher who never teaches, a leader who never leads, an artist who never creates, they all rob the world of inspiration. Inaction doesn't just diminish personal growth, it diminishes collective progress. The ripple of your potential could have inspired, healed, or changed lives, but when you do nothing, that ripple never begins. The tragedy is not only in what you lose, but in what the world loses because you chose silence over contribution. People often fear making mistakes, but they forget that inaction is itself a mistake, the most expensive kind. Failure gives knowledge, inaction gives ignorance. You can recover from the wrong step by taking another, but you cannot recover from never stepping at all. The person who tries and fails once learns more than the one who thinks endlessly without acting. The path to mastery has no shortcuts. It's paved with action, with imperfection, with repetition. Each effort, even if it seems small or unsuccessful, becomes a brick in the foundation of progress. Inaction, on the other hand, builds nothing but regret. Inaction is also the enemy of faith. Faith is movement toward the unseen, the belief that something will unfold once you begin. When you do nothing, you declare doubt in disguise. You say through your stillness that you do not trust life to meet you halfway. Every act of courage strengthens faith. Every act of avoidance weakens it. Inaction breeds spiritual fatigue, the kind that makes a person feel disconnected from meaning. You begin to wonder why you feel empty, not realizing that it's because faith without works is lifeless. Action and faith are inseparable. One sustains the other, and without them both, hope begins to fade. Even ambition cannot survive prolonged inaction. You may still talk about dreams, still visualize success, still set goals, but without action, ambition becomes fantasy. It loses substance and slowly turns into self-deception. You begin to mistake talking about progress for actually making it. The satisfaction of planning replaces the satisfaction of achieving. You trick your mind into believing that thinking is doing, but the results remain absent. True ambition is verified by motion. It breathes through discipline, not desire. Inaction suffocates it until all that remains is the echo of what could have been. In the end, inaction costs more than any failure because it leaves you unchanged. Failure molds you, shapes you, and refines your character. Inaction does none of that. It preserves your weaknesses and freezes your growth. The person who never acts never truly lives. They drift through time, watching others move, wondering why life feels so still. The real loss lies not in falling short, but in never beginning the race. Time passes whether you act